One mistake, one fall, one moment broadcast to millions. And then, silence. No calls, no team, no coach. Just Maya, alone in a hospital room, realizing that the sport she gave everything to had already moved on without her. Maya felt the mistake before anyone else could see it. A fraction too early on the takeoff. A fraction too late on the correction. That was all it took. Her blade didn't set cleanly into the ice. The edge slipped just enough to throw her axis off. The rotation started wrong, tilted, unstable. There was a split second where her body tried to compensate. Years of training forcing an automatic correction, but the timing was gone. She came down hard. Not the controlled kind of fall that could be turned into a transition. This one broke the line of the program completely. Her hip struck first, the impact sharp and flat, followed by her shoulder. The force traveled through her torso and snapped into her leg. Something inside shifted the wrong way. The music kept going. It filled the arena with bright, precise rhythm, untouched by what had just happened. Every note landed exactly as planned, while Maya stayed on the ice, completely out of sync with it. She inhaled sharply and pushed her palm against the surface. Cold, solid, familiar. Up, she told herself. Her body didn't respond. She forced it again, tightening every muscle that still obeyed. Her weight shifted forward, her core engaged. Then her injured leg collapsed under her. Not weakness, not hesitation, a clear mechanical failure. Pain followed instantly, not gradual, not building, immediate and deep, locking her in place. It cut through everything else, noise, light, movement, and left only one message: stop. The crowd reacted in layers. A few gasps, a ripple of movement. The low, uncomfortable sound of people realizing they were watching something go wrong in real time. Maya kept her gaze down. If she looked up, she would see the screens. The replay, the angle that showed exactly how it failed. She didn't need confirmation. She already knew. Her hand tightened against the ice as she tried once more to get up. Nothing changed. That was the exact moment it ended. Not the performance. Control. Officials were already moving toward her. She saw their shadows first, stretching across the ice under the overhead lights. Voices followed, sharp, professional, overlapping. Stay still. Don't move the leg. Can you feel this? She didn't answer. Hands reached her, careful but firm, assessing, stabilizing. Someone crouched at her side, speaking directly to her, trying to pull her attention away from the pain. Maya ignored the words. Her focus stayed locked on one thing: her leg. She tried to move it again, even slightly. There was no response she could control, only pain reacting back. A camera shutter clicked somewhere too close. She turned her face away immediately, pressing her cheek toward the ice as if that could remove her from the frame. It didn't matter. The moment was already captured. They helped her onto the stretcher. The transition from ice to fabric felt wrong, unstable. Her body resisted the shift, every movement sending sharp feedback through her system. The arena lights passed overhead as they carried her out. Bright, repetitive, detached. The music was still playing behind her when the doors closed, its hollow, perfect rhythm the last thing she heard before the silence of the corridor took over. Backstage moved fast. Corridors blurred into each other. White walls, open doors. Equipment pushed aside to clear the path. Someone kept talking, asking her to stay focused, to respond, to confirm basic things. Maya gave short, minimal answers when necessary. Yes. No. I feel it. Nothing more. They transferred her again. Another surface. Another adjustment. Each shift measured, controlled, but still painful. Time lost structure. By the time she was in the examination room, the adrenaline had started to fade. Pain settled into something heavier, more defined. Not sharp spikes anymore. Something deeper, constant, anchored. The doctor examined her leg methodically. Movement tests. Pressure points. Controlled rotations. Maya watched his face instead of her own body. That told her more than anything else. There was no panic there. No urgency. Just calculation. That was worse. When he finally spoke, his tone stayed even. Practiced. Neutral. Severe ligament damage. Instability in the joint. Possible complications depending on recovery response. He paused briefly before continuing. Rehabilitation would be long. Outcome uncertain. Not impossible, but not guaranteed. Maya held his gaze for a second longer, then nodded once. No questions. There was nothing to clarify. The hotel room felt too large when she returned to it. Everything inside was clean, arranged, untouched. A temporary space that expected movement, routine, continuation. She closed the door behind her and stood there for a moment without moving. No schedule, no instructions, no next step waiting. That absence pressed harder than anything else that day. She moved toward the bed slowly, testing her balance with each step. Her injured leg took minimal weight, just enough to function. When she reached the edge, she stopped, then tried. One controlled shift of weight onto the injured side. The response was immediate. Pain forced her back before she could stabilize. Her body rejected the attempt completely. Maya sat down, her breathing uneven but controlled. This wasn't about performance anymore. Not about scores. Not about rankings. Not about anything external. This was basic. Function. If she couldn't rely on her own body, nothing else mattered. The thoughts settled in without resistance. By morning, her decision was already made. She didn't call anyone, didn't respond to messages, didn't leave instructions. She removed herself. The flight north was quiet and uneventful. She chose a seat away from attention, kept her posture closed, avoided interaction without effort. No one recognized her. Or if they did, they didn't act on it. Either way, the result was the same. Irrelevance came faster than expected. When she landed, the air felt different immediately. Colder. Heavier. Still, Maine didn't rush. It didn't react. It existed without adjustment. The town looked smaller than she remembered. Buildings spaced wider apart. Movement slower. Fewer signs of urgency anywhere. Maya stepped out carefully, placing her foot down with measured control. Her leg held. Not strong, but stable enough. She adjusted her balance and continued. The arena stood at the edge of town, exactly where it had always been. Time had worn it down, but not changed it. The exterior paint had faded unevenly. Parts of the structure leaned slightly, just enough to notice if you paid attention. The windows reflected dull light instead of brightness. It wasn't abandoned, but it wasn't maintained with care either. It simply remained. Maya approached slowly, her steps controlled, her focus steady. No noise came from inside. No movement. No expectation. She stopped a few feet from the entrance. This place had nothing to offer her in terms of status. No audience. No recognition. No pressure. That was exactly why she chose it. For the first time since the fall, there was no external demand attached to her next step. Only a decision. Stay outside. Or go in. Maya exhaled once, steady and controlled. Then reached for the door and stepped inside. The arena smelled the same. Cold air mixed with old wood and something metallic, like worn blades in water that had been frozen and melted too many times. Nothing about it tried to impress. It existed in its current state without apology. Maya stepped inside and closed the door behind her, the sound echoing briefly through the empty space. The lobby lights were dim. No front desk staff. No movement. Just a quiet building that didn't expect visitors this late. She moved forward slowly, her steps measured, her weight carefully distributed. The pain in her leg was present but contained, no longer explosive, just a constant reminder with every shift of balance. She passed the old benches, the vending machine that hadn't changed since she was a child, the scuffed walls marked by years of careless contact. Memory tried to surface. Early mornings, stiff fingers, the sound of blades cutting fresh ice. But she pushed it down. That version of her wasn't useful now. She reached the rink entrance and stopped. The lights over the ice were on. Not fully bright, but enough. Someone was here. Maya didn't move immediately. She listened. A steady, repetitive sound carried across the space. Rough. Manual. Not mechanical. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The cold hit sharper here. The ice stretched out in front of her, imperfect, marked by uneven lines and dull patches where it hadn't been properly resurfaced. At the far end, a man worked alone. He moved slowly across the rink, dragging a long metal tool behind him, shaving the surface by hand. No machine, no shortcuts, just controlled, deliberate effort. Maya stayed near the entrance for a second longer, observing. His movements were efficient but not rushed. He knew exactly what he was doing. That was clear from the way he adjusted pressure, the angle of the blade, the rhythm of each pass. This wasn't improvisation. It was routine. She stepped forward onto the rubber mat, the sound enough to carry across the empty rink. The man stopped. Not abruptly. just enough to register the presence. He didn't turn right away. Instead, he finished the motion he was in, lifted the tool, and only then looked in her direction. His expression didn't change when he saw her. No recognition, no curiosity, just assessment. Maya held his gaze without speaking. He walked toward the edge of the rink, resting the tool against the barrier before stepping closer. Up close, he looked older than she expected. Not by years, but by experience. Worn edges, controlled posture. Someone who had already decided not to waste energy on unnecessary reactions. "We're closed," he said. His voice was flat, direct. No hostility. No welcome either. Maya didn't respond immediately. She studied him the same way he had studied her. "I'm not here for public hours," she said finally. He glanced at her leg. Not long. Just enough to notice the way she stood. The imbalance wasn't subtle. "Doesn't matter," he replied. "Closed means closed." Maya shifted her weight slightly, testing her stability before speaking again. "I don't need much space." "You need a schedule," he said. "And money." No pause. No hesitation. Just fact. She didn't argue the first point. The second one lingered for a second too long. He noticed. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion, but in confirmation. "Right," he said. "So you don't have that either." The tone didn't change, but the meaning did. Maya's jaw tightened. "I can work something out." He shook his head once, already turning away. Not interested. Dismissal. Clean. Final. He picked up the tool again, stepping back onto the ice as if the conversation was already over. Maya didn't leave. She moved closer to the barrier instead, resting her hand lightly against it. "You're doing it wrong," she said. The words came out before she adjusted them. He stopped again, slower this time, then turned. "Am I?" There was no challenge in his voice. Just curiosity edged with something sharper. Maya nodded toward the surface. "Your pressure's uneven. You're overcutting one side. It's going to freeze rough." He looked at the ice, then back at her. A brief pause. Not uncertainty. Evaluation. "And you'd know that how?" Maya didn't answer directly. "Because I've skated on better," she said. Not arrogance. Not quite. But close enough. Something in his expression shifted. Not anger. Recognition. Not of her identity, but of her type. "Let me guess," he said. "You're one of those." Maya resumed the same steady, controlled motion across the surface. No wasted movement. No hesitation. Just repetition done right. Then she turned and left the rink, the cold air following her out. The deal was simple. Work for access. No room for anything else. For now, that was enough. Maya arrived before sunrise. The town was still empty, the streets quiet in a way that made every step sound louder than it should. The cold bit sharper in the early hours, settling into her joints before she even reached the arena. She didn't rush. Every movement was deliberate, controlled, measured against the limits of her leg. The door wasn't locked. She noticed that immediately. Not an invitation, just confirmation that Lucas expected her. Inside, the lights were already on. Not all of them, just enough to work. The arena looked harsher in the morning. The imperfections were clearer. Cracks along the walls. Warped sections of wood. Equipment stacked without order because there was no better place to put it. Function over appearance. Lucas stood near the far side of the rink, sorting tools into a rough arrangement that only made sense to him. He didn't look up when she entered. "You're late," he said. Maya checked the clock on the wall. She wasn't. "No," she replied. He glanced at it once, then back at her. "Then you're just on time. Don't get used to it." No greeting. No transition. Just work. She continued. Each swing forced her to stabilize before and after impact. No shortcuts. No compensation without consequence. The repetition built something different than the ice had. Not finesse. Structure. By the time she stopped, the pile had changed shape. Not finished, but reduced. Maya set the axe down, her breathing controlled but heavier now. Lucas stepped forward, checking the stack without comment. Then he nodded once. "You're not useless," he said. Maya gave a short, dry exhale. "Good to know." A brief pause settled between them. Not empty, just quieter than before. Lucas looked at her again, more directly this time. "People called me something," he said. "Back then." Maya didn't ask. He continued anyway. "The enforcer." A beat. Then it turned into something else. "I saw your fall on the broadcast, Maya. I saw the way you looked at the ice before you went down, like it had betrayed you. I came here years ago because the ice is the only thing that doesn't lie. I figured you needed to learn that, too. His expression didn't change, but the weight of it did. Brute Lucas. Maya held his gaze. And now? Lucas glanced around the arena once, then back at her. Now I fix what's left. No self-pity. No justification. Just fact. Maya nodded once. That was enough. No need to push further. The connection settled in without words. Not trust. Not yet. But something aligned. Two careers ended differently. Same result. They worked in silence after that. No need to fill it. The structure was clear now. Pain. Work. Correction. Repeat. The first time she stepped onto the ice in the dark, her leg buckled before she could glide a meter. The surface felt alien, too fast for her compromised nerves. She collapsed against the boards, the cold biting into her palms, and stayed there for a long time, listening to the hum of the empty building. From the shadows of the bleachers, the glow of Lucas's cigarette flickered once, but he didn't move to help. He let her find her own balance. And for the first time since the fall, Maya felt something shift. Not recovery, not confidence, direction. The next morning, Maya tried to enter a spin too fast. Her leg gave way, and she slammed into the boards with a hollow thud. Lucas didn't stop resurfacing the ice. You're still trying to outrun a shadow that isn't there, he called out, his voice echoing. I'm trying to find my rhythm. Maya snapped, gripping the rail. No. Lucas stopped, leaning on his tool. You're trying to find your old rhythm. That girl is gone. This ice only cares about the woman who's standing on it right now. Stop insulting the process. Winter deepened, and the arena became their isolated world. The morning light barely reached the ice, dust motes catching in the faint glow through high windows. Lucas had stopped expecting visitors. Maya arrived daily, always before sunrise. The first month was a blur of agonizingly slow stretches and static balance work that left her shaking. Only when the autumn air turned brittle and her legs stopped giving way during basic strides did Lucas lead her outside. They moved in silence at first, the routine speaking more than words. Today, Lucas led her outside. Snow lay thick on the ground, untouched. The cold seeped through Maya's boots, biting at her calves. Lucas pointed to a set of logs stacked in uneven piles near the arena's exterior. Run around them, he said. In deep snow. Don't let your feet drag. Balance is everything. Maya glanced at the logs. Not a challenge, yet. She nodded once and started. Each step sank into the snow, forcing her body to compensate. The pain in her leg flared unpredictably, testing her endurance. Breath came faster, colder. Weeks bled into a singular, grueling rhythm. The early autumn frost turned into the iron grip of a Maine November. Maya no longer counted days. She counted the inches of progress in her range of motion. Lucas didn't offer praise, but his silence grew less sharp, replaced by a focused, professional gravity that anchored her when the phantom pains of the fall tried to pull her back. By dusk, Maya sat on the boards, exhausted but aligned. Lucas finally spoke. You've got endurance, he said. Not praise. Fact. She nodded, silently agreeing. Outside, the snow fell heavier, the arena lights casting long shadows across the ice. Inside, they prepared tools for tomorrow. Silent cooperation. No words necessary. Bonding existed in action. Not conversation. Not confession. Action. Precision. Trust. The foundation for something more. Maya finally understood that recovery wasn't just about her leg. It was about patience, control, structure, and the rare connection with someone who understood struggle without words. Lucas never smiled. Not yet. But she felt it in the rhythm of their day, in the exactness of his instruction, in the subtle acknowledgement of her effort. That was enough. For now. The quiet of the small town shattered one gray morning with the roar of a car engine. Maya heard it before she saw it, a polished black sedan skidding slightly on the icy road near the arena. She tensed instinctively, pain and alertness sharpening in her gut. Lucas didn't react immediately either, but she saw his jaw tighten as the car stopped. A man stepped out. Tall, charismatic, confident, and impossibly familiar. Maya's stomach sank. Victor. Her former coach and partner in every public triumph she'd ever known. The memory hit fast, bright lights, cameras, applause, the way he had always held the narrative of her success in his hands. And now he was here, not with a smile of nostalgia, not with regret, with business, power, contract in hand. He approached the arena doors with measured steps, eyes scanning the old building, the ice, then finally resting on her. Maya, he said smoothly. Not a question, not a greeting, a statement of possession. She didn't answer immediately. Her leg protested as she shifted stance, unsure whether to confront or retreat. Lucas's presence was behind her shoulder, solid, silent, protective. Victor's eyes flicked to him briefly but didn't register concern. I've been trying to reach you, Victor continued, voice carefully warm, controlled. Through your mother. Through old contacts. You've ignored every attempt. Maya's chest tightened. Why are you here? Her voice was steady, but her heart raced. Opportunity, he said. A show. International. Millions. Your talent deserves it. You deserve it. Not a request. A command in disguise. I'm not going, she said. Lucas shifted slightly beside her, ready to intervene, though his hands stayed by his sides. Victor's smile widened. Not going would be unfortunate. He glanced around at the arena, noting its age, its disrepair, his expression momentarily twisting into something calculating. I'm not here for the land, Maya. I'm here for the investment you wasted. I've bought the arena's debt not to build a mall, but to prove that without my world, you have nothing but a freezing ruin. You can sign the contract and return to the spotlight I created for you. Or you can stay here and watch the town lose its heart because you're too proud to admit you're broken. If you won't be my star, you won't be anyone's. Maya's stomach dropped. He had leverage she hadn't anticipated. Lucas's stance tightened. Protective, silent, immovable. I don't want your show, Maya said. Her voice sharpened, controlled. I want my life. Away from all of this. Victor tilted his head, assessing. Then his grin returned, colder this time. Your life, or the spotlight. You can't have both. And you know it. Silence stretched. The wind whistled outside, brushing snow against the boards. The arena felt suddenly smaller, more fragile. Victor's presence dominated it, even though he occupied only a small space near the doors. Maya's mind raced, weighing the threat, the fear, the temptation. Lucas didn't speak. His eyes, dark and assessing, remained on Victor. No reaction. Maya realized he trusted her to decide. To act. Not impulsively. I said no, she repeated. Victor's eyes glinted, sharp, calculating. You'll regret that, he said. Then, without another word, he turned, leaving the threat hanging in the air. The car engine roared again, fading down the icy road, leaving the small arena and its occupants in silence. Maya exhaled slowly, heart still pounding. Lucas didn't move toward her, didn't comment. He simply watched, steady, a silent confirmation that they would face whatever came next together. The ice seemed colder now, the building older, the stakes higher. And yet, in the quiet aftermath, Maya felt the first flicker of something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Control. Over herself. Over the choice she had just made. Over her return. Victor had arrived. But the game was not yet his. And for the first time, she understood that what mattered wasn't applause or contracts. It was her own decision, her own path. Lucas gave her the smallest nod. No words. That was enough. She squared her shoulders. The challenge had arrived. And so had the fight to reclaim her life. Victor's car appeared again, but he didn't step out. He simply rolled down the window and tossed a local newspaper onto the snow. The headline was a grainy photo of the arena with a bold notice of a property assessment for redevelopment. He tapped the steering wheel, his eyes locking onto Maya's. This place is a relic, Maya. I've already secured the rights to the land beneath this scrap heap, Maya. The town needs a shopping center more than it needs a broken star. You can sign the contract and let me turn this into a legacy, or you can stay here until the bulldozers arrive at dawn. You can come back to the world that made you, or you can watch me bulldoze the only roof you have left. He didn't wait for an answer, the black sedan pulling away and leaving the exhaust to hang in the freezing air. Maya read it once, crumpled it, and left it on the floor. Word of the debt buyout leaked. It started with the hardware store owner leaving a box of heaters by the door, then the diner owner bringing thermoses of coffee for the workers. The town didn't have Victor's millions, but they began showing up to paint the scratched walls and reinforce the benches, turning the arena into a fortress of small repairs. While the men worked on the boards, the hardware store owner sat in the corner with a stack of old property deeds and a local lawyer, their whispers buried under the sound of hammers. They weren't just saving a building. They were protecting the only person who had come back to them from the world that usually forgets places like Maine. It wasn't a formal protest. It was a slow, quiet occupation. By the third night, the local electrician was tracing old wiring in the ceiling while a group of retired hockey players sat in the stands, ostensibly watching Maya, but actually guarding the entrance. They didn't say much to her, but their presence changed the acoustics of the building. The arena was no longer a hollow shell waiting for a bulldozer. It was a lighthouse that the town had decided to keep lit. She didn't speak of it to Lucas. She couldn't, and he didn't ask. The tension between them thickened, unspoken but mutual. Lucas sensed her conflict, the battle raging inside her mind. Yet he maintained the structure, guiding her training, silently enforcing limits, silently offering stability. Slowly, Maya began to understand the fracture forming, not between her and Lucas, but inside herself. The crisis wasn't external. It was internal, talent versus fear, past versus present, expectation versus reality. Each repetition on the ice, each log split, each step in the snow became a test not of skill, but of resolve. And in that silent, grueling work, Maya realized something vital. She didn't have to answer to Victor to reclaim herself. But that meant confronting her doubts fully, without the crutch of external validation. By the end of the week, her movements were sharper, her posture firmer. The fear had not vanished, but it no longer controlled her. Lucas observed quietly, offering subtle corrections, allowing her space to choose her strength. The fracture was still there, but cracks had begun to close. Maya understood that the next step, the real test, would not be on the ice alone. It would be in the choices she made. And she had begun to decide. The town gathered quietly that evening, murmuring among themselves as the old arena filled with the soft hum of anticipation. Word had spread that Maya would perform, though no one knew the program, and no lights of the television crews would invade this small, intimate space. Inside, the rink glimmered faintly, the ice imperfect but alive with memory. The news of the redevelopment notice had leaked through the town diner by noon. The locals, who had watched Lucas fight for this roof for years, came not for a show, but to witness the last stand of a place that refused to disappear. Lucas stood near the boards, silent, his eyes on her, steadying her presence without words. Maya laced her skates carefully, feeling the familiar cold bite through the boots. The leg protested, but she ignored it. Pain was a language she had learned to speak fluently. It wasn't the reckless movement of a month ago. Every hour spent splitting wood and resisting the pull of the deep snow had re-anchored her. She had traded the fragile elegance of her past for a dense, grounded strength that didn't rely on luck. She took her first step onto the ice, slow, deliberate. The crowd watched in silence, their presence secondary to her own rhythm. She began with cautious lines, feeling the ice resist and then yield. It wasn't the high-flying program of her past. There were no triple jumps, no gravity-defying spins. It was a study in grounded strength. Every movement was a deliberate choice, slow and rhythmic, focusing on the grace of recovery rather than the spectacle of sport. Lucas's voice anchored her only once: "Center your weight." That was enough. She wasn't performing for a score. She was moving to prove she still could. Each figure, each transition, bore the weight of months of struggle. The fall, the pain, the repetition, the labor, the corrections. Her body was no longer passive. It responded, adapted, overcame. Lucas watched from the boards, not as a coach, but as a witness, ensuring the structure remained intact. The small crowd of locals held their breath as she entered the final spin. There were no bright flashes, only the rhythmic scratch of her blade on the imperfect surface and the low, heavy hum of the old furnace. When she finished, the applause was sharp and percussive, echoing off the wooden rafters. In the back, Victor stood with his coat collar turned up, his face unreadable as he watched the town embrace the woman he could no longer buy. He didn't wait for the ice to clear. He turned and walked out into the cold, his silhouette fading before the last cheer subsided. The legal battle for historical preservation was only the beginning. When Victor's team arrived to serve the final notice, they found the arena lights blazing and the parking lot full of local trucks. It wasn't just a protest. It was a demonstration that the building was already occupied by a spirit he couldn't quantify in a spreadsheet. He realized then that evicting a fallen star was easy, but evicting a town that had found its purpose again was a public relations nightmare he couldn't afford. Victor didn't leave because he lost the court case. He left because he realized that in this town, his money no longer bought silence. Lucas stepped onto the ice beside her, careful not to intrude, but close enough that their shoulders brushed. No words passed between them. None were needed. Victor turned and left without confrontation. He had no power here. Maya rose slowly, skating to the boards. The crowd cheered, but she barely heard them. All that mattered was the ice beneath her feet, the presence of Lucas beside her, and the knowledge that she had chosen herself over expectation. In that moment, the fall, the pain, the pressure, and the manipulation were irrelevant. She had reclaimed control. Not the gold, not the spotlight. Control. That alone was triumph. The arena, old and imperfect, held her story, and for the first time since the fall, Maya felt complete. Lucas didn't thank the townspeople when they left that night. He simply handed the keys to the hardware store owner to lock up for the first time in 20 years. It was the only way he knew how to say that the building didn't just belong to his ghosts anymore. The next morning, the arena was quiet again, sunlight cutting through frost-lined windows. The air smelled of wood smoke, ice, and the faint tang of sweat from yesterday's performance. Maya sat on the boards, skates unlaced, legs still trembling from exertion. Lucas moved around the arena, tending to tools, shifting logs, checking the ice. The silence was comfortable now, no tension, no threats. Victor's absence was absolute. His promises, his contracts, his power, all irrelevant. Maya exhaled, feeling a weight lift from her chest. "What now?" she asked softly, not looking at Lucas. He didn't respond immediately. He kept working, methodical, careful. Then he paused and met her eyes. No words, only understanding. "We build," he finally said. Simple, clear, action. Together, they cleared snow, repaired boards, and tended the furnace. Every movement reaffirmed the rhythm they had created, the bond forged through shared labor and unspoken trust. Days turned into weeks. Locals began arriving, not as critics, but as students. Children wide-eyed with curiosity, drawn by the stories of the skater who had returned to life on her own terms. She stopped trying to teach them how to be perfect. Instead, she taught the children how to fall, how to tuck their heads, how to absorb the impact, and how to wait in the stillness until the strength to rise came back. It was the first time she had ever taught the truth. Lucas rarely smiled, but she felt the quiet pride in his presence, in the way he watched her, watched them all, steady and unwavering. One evening, after the last student had gone home, they stood on the ice together. The arena empty, cold, but warm with memories. Maya extended her hand. Lucas hesitated, then took it. No words, no confessions necessary. The touch said everything: respect, trust, affection, understanding. The past, the falls, the pressure, Victor's manipulations, all of it belonged to history. And somewhere in that quiet victory, Maya found peace. Not fame, not gold, not applause. A life reclaimed, a body healed, a heart open. The old arena, imperfect and worn, stood as proof. Triumph had taken a different shape: love, resilience, and a new beginning on ice shared, step by deliberate step, together.